Let us see the second level of cognitive process dimension, understand. Understand takes place when the learner connects new concepts to the older pre-existing concepts, thereby building and expanding the schema. Understand is the largest category of transfer-based learning objectives. These are the subcategories of the cognitive process understand. In other words, when a learner is doing any of these activities while learning, she is understanding the content. While creating test items for understanding level, it is important that information in the assessment must be new which the learner has not encountered before while learning. Otherwise, the cognitive activity will be remembering rather than understanding. Let us discuss these subcategories with examples. Interpreting is the process that involves converting information from one representational form into another. For example, paraphrasing, picture comprehension, where what is observed in picture is described in words, drawing pictures from descriptions, etc. When a learner is doing these processes while learning, she is interpreting. An example of learning objective from this category is the learner will be able to paraphrase the given text. The test item corresponding to this learning objective could be write a paraphrase of the speech given by Pandit Nehru on the night of independence. It is important to note here that information in the assessment must be new which the learner has not encountered before. Otherwise, the cognitive activity will be remembering rather than understanding. Exemplifying occurs when the learner gives or selects examples which were not a part of instruction. An example of learning objective is given brief sketches of plays, identify a romantic comedy. The test item could present sketches of plays of different kinds of genres, out of which they will identify romantic comedy. Here it is expected that the learner is taught only romantic plays. The learner will then identify a romantic play from their defining features. Classifying occurs when a learner recognizes an example belonging to a certain category. It involves detecting relevant features or patterns that fit the category and the example both. The example of learning objective is, given the pictures of different animals, the learner will be able to classify them into groups. The test item could present the learner with pictures or characteristics of different animals on the basis of which the example would be classified. Summarizing occurs when the learner frames or writes an abstract or summary representing the presented information. An example of learning objective is the learner will be able to write in brief the reasons of the Second World War. The test item for this objective could be write in brief the reasons of the Second World War with respect to political taking over of Germany by Hitler. Here, note that the learner is asked to summarize about one of the reasons. Inferring involves finding a pattern or associations with a series of examples or instances. It occurs when the learner is able to identify the logic or the principle behind the relationship. Look at the numbers given on the screen. Do you see any relationship between the numbers? Yes, you guessed it right. It's a series of numbers where the number is an addition of the previous two numbers. You have inferred or concluded this by observing the items. Let us see an example of learning objective. The learner will be able to infer grammatical rules from examples. Here the test item could consist of examples of correct usage of a, an and the. The learner could come up with the rule of using the articles correctly. Comparing involves detecting similarities and differences between objects, events, ideas, problems and situations. It could also draw similarities between presented situations or examples with situations and examples more familiar to the learner. See this learning objective. The learner will be able to draw similarities between life in tundra with her natural surroundings. Its corresponding test item could be which animal is to you like a yak is for people from tundra. Explaining occurs when the learner studies a system, learns the causes or factors that have a significant effect on the system, so that they possess knowledge about the system from all the perspectives. If you look closely, explaining goes beyond mere explaining of concepts or phenomenon. It demands the learner to have complete understanding of the system. See the sample learning objectives. Let us take an example of sprouting as a system of processes. assume that the learners know the basic phenomena of sprouting. The first objective expects the learner to explain conditions under which pulses sprout. The second objective will identify causes for the pulses not sprouting. This leads to skills of troubleshooting. The third objective will suggest remedies such that pulses sprout correctly every time. This objective gives an opportunity to the learner to redesign the system. And the fourth predicts what would happen if a wider vessel was taken while keeping the pulses for sprouting or they were placed in the sun. This objective gives an opportunity to the learner to predict or hypothesize what would happen should any of the components of the system change.